Hello and welcome. My name is Christina from Empowered Creator. I'm a mindset and conscious manifesting teacher and coach, and this is my YouTube channel. Here I talk about all things law of assumption, mindset, conscious manifesting, the quantum universe, and a lot more. And my goal is to simplify everything without the fluff. So if you guys like this content and you would like to see more of it, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, like it, share it, and just stick around. Also, if you need any help with your specific situation, I offer one-on-one coaching, email coaching, small group coaching, as well as custom subliminals for whatever needs you may have. So if you're interested in any of these services, the links are below in the description box. Click on them and they're going to take you to my website. With all that being said, let's dive into today's video. In today's video, we're going to talk about inspired action. What is inspired action? How does it feel like? And how do you know that you're taking inspired action towards a manifestation? This is what I'm going to be discussing today in this video, so stay tuned. So first of all, what is inspired action? That is a term that Neville himself coined. He came up with that term, and he basically used it to describe the action you take while you are in the state of the wish fulfilled, while you're living in the end state, and you get the urge to do something which could very well be something that is not usual to you, is not typical of you, and you still take the action without really realizing, without overthinking it, without second guessing it, and then looking back, it turns out to be a bridge to what you're manifesting. This is Neville's definition of inspired action, and keep in mind that not all action is inspired action. Action taken from a state of lack, a state of the wish not fulfilled, a state of anxiety, a state of wanting confirmation, validation, a state of wanting to check if your manifestation is working, a state of wanting or needing to force the 3D. All these states, any action you take from all these states is actually usually not inspired action. The reason being that you're not actually living in the wish fulfilled, in the state of the wish fulfilled, in the end state. So as I have explained before, our state in any given moment actually dictates our thoughts, our feelings, our energy, and it also dictates the actions we take or the actions we don't take. So if we're in a state of lack, it goes without saying that the actions we're going to be taking from that state are usually, most typically, not inspired action, and that's because they're coming from a state that's desperate, a state that is lacking, a state where we need confirmation, validation, and all these things. Inspired action, on the other hand, is the kind of action that comes from a state of ease, a state where we're feeling fulfilled, a state where we're feeling calm and fine and perhaps even neutral, a state where we feel that our desire is ours, that it's already done. And so any action that comes from this state, if at all, because action is not necessary, actually, but sometimes we get these urges to take inspired action that can bring our manifestation closer or can actually bring us right into our manifestation. So any action we take from that state, because we're already in the state of the wish fulfilled, we're already feeling fulfilled, confident, relieved inside, calm, fine, right? Every action we take from that kind of state actually tends to be useful and helpful towards our manifestation, towards our desire, panning out, materializing into the 3D. Now, how does inspired action actually feel? This is a question I get a lot from time to time, and the answer might surprise you because I'm going to tell you it doesn't really feel like anything. It doesn't feel like much at all. It feels like something very natural. It feels like something that a lot of the time you're not even overthinking it. You're not thinking it twice before you do it. It might even feel like accidental action, and I'm going to give an example of that in a minute from one of Neville's books. It just feels very natural. It doesn't feel forced. You haven't thought about it earlier. It just comes spontaneously and you just do it. Let's say the same way you would text your best friend. Without thinking it twice, you just do it. You just get the urge and you just spontaneously do it and you're not even thinking about it. It feels that natural. That is how inspired action usually feels. And so it's not the kind of action that you have pre-planned. It's not the kind of action that you have been thinking about for days. It's not even the kind of action that you would have had time to actually think about a lot, second guess, overthink, overanalyze, look at all the perspectives, look at all the options. It's none of that. Usually it's none of that. Inspired action that comes from your higher self, that actually leads you to your manifestation or that becomes a bridge towards your manifestation, is action that feels very spontaneous, very natural, very in the moment, and like I said, even accidental. And let me give you guys an example here so that you can actually understand it better and I can actually illustrate my point better. This example comes from one of Neville's books. It's one of the stories from one of his clients or one of his students at the time. So that lady apparently was living in New York City and she took her kids one summer to Europe on a trip. So they were gone for approximately a month. And when they came back, she came back to an empty apartment. She came back to find out that her maid, who she had left in charge of all her stuff and all the whole house, the whole apartment, had actually stolen all her furniture, all her stuff, and she had moved it all out to an unknown location. So what this lady did, basically, she moved her family to a hotel room because they had no furniture, they had nothing. It was just an empty apartment that they came back to. So she moved to a hotel room. Obviously, she went to the police. The police was not able to help. So then what she did was that she started imagining her apartment with all the furniture back. So she did those imaginal acts for several days, several nights. And one day, as she was going to the bank, she actually took the wrong turn out of nowhere. She just ended up taking a different way, which she never took before and she never used to take. So there was no seeming reason why she would take that way, why she would go that way. And yet she took a seemingly wrong turn, okay? And she went another way. Well, that seeming accident, that seeming wrong turn ended up bringing her face to face with that maid. And so essentially what ended up happening was that the lady confronted her. She asked her where she had taken her furniture. The maid was very, very scared, very afraid that she would take her to the police. So basically she took her to a warehouse where they had kept all her furniture and the furniture was returned to the owner just like that. So by her seemingly taking a wrong turn, seemingly going the wrong way for no apparent reason, she ended up bumping into her maid and finding her furniture that even the police hadn't been able to find for a month. So that is a perfect example of inspired action. She didn't think about it. She didn't feel anything. She didn't have any premonition. She didn't plan it. She was just on her way. And for whatever reason that she couldn't tell at the time, she couldn't understand at the time, she just ended up taking a wrong turn. Well, by knowing what we know as conscious manifestors, we know that this was probably her higher self guiding her steps, urging her to take that wrong turn so that she could bump into her maid and she could get her furniture back, which is what she had been manifesting. So yes, inspired action, when it comes to you as an inspiration, as an urge, it's not going to feel like anything, but it's not going to be something that you've been planning for a long time, something that you've been thinking about a long time. It's going to be more of a spontaneous action, something that you don't overthink, something that maybe you don't even expect, something that maybe you don't usually do. So I would say don't get too caught up with how am I going to take inspired action, because that's still thinking about the how things are going to happen. Your job is to dominantly dwell in the end state and trust that if you need to take any inspired action to get closer to your manifestation, it's going to be revealed to you. You are going to get the urge. It's going to come to you out of nowhere, okay? So you're not going to miss it. Don't worry about that. So then how do you know that you're taking inspired action versus perhaps forced action? Well, inspired action is going to come from a state where you're feeling fine, where you're feeling confident about your results, about your manifestation. When you're not desperate, you're not desperately trying to think how to make it happen. You're not desperately trying to force the 3D to change, because that's not what you're supposed to do. And it's going to feel natural, probably neutral, probably spontaneous, probably something that you haven't been expecting, you haven't been planning. Perhaps even something that you don't usually do. If it's not inspired action, on the other hand, it's going to feel forced. You're going to be in a state where you're feeling desperate, you're feeling needy, you're feeling clingy, you're obsessed about changing the 3D and how to make it happen. It would come from a state where, in general, you're not feeling well. And perhaps it would be something that you're overthinking, you're second guessing, you keep going back and forth, you keep asking yourself if it's the right thing to do. So all these things actually tell you that you're dwelling in the how. You're trying to figure out the how things are going to happen, okay? And this is not what you're supposed to do. And any action taken from these kinds of states usually is not inspired action. Usually is just desperate action out of feeling like you need to do something to push things forward, action through which you're seeking validation, confirmation, action through which you're checking if your manifesting has been working. So this is not inspired action. So bottom line, don't worry. If you are required to take inspired action to bring your manifestation closer or to get to your manifestation, it's going to come, you're going to get the urge, you're going to get the inspiration, it's going to feel natural, you're not going to overthink or second guess it, and it's just going to happen. You're not going to miss it. So please don't worry about that. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I intend that this has helped. As always, I very much appreciate you guys being on this channel, watching this content. I love making this content for you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all at the next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.